Well, the NHL season is upon us, and I hope you didn't get too used to that all-Canadian North Division because, well, we're getting back to normal. So instead of trying to rank the teams like we did last year, let's take a look at one glaring question for each team going into this kind of back to normal NHL season. So when talking about the Leafs, I'm going to completely skip the regular season. Yes, it's now Jack Campbell's net. Yes, Zach Hyman took off for Edmonton, and Joe Thornton, Nick Foligno, and Riley Nash also bolted. But this team still has the tools to pile up the wins in the regular season. I know we're in the age of analytics, but let's face it, there's no number that can describe what we all saw in the playoffs with this team last year, and that is that the Leafs simply don't take their game to the next level. Playoff hockey is just another beast, and the Leafs spent their playoffs making mistakes that wouldn't fly at any time of the year. Sure, Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, they're going to post numbers in the regular season like they always do, but until they show the hockey pucks to do that in the playoffs, I'm not betting on this team finally making it out of the first round. In last year's season preview, I said the Habs wouldn't make the playoffs, and in a shocking turn of events, Habs fans didn't hesitate on a daily basis to let me know what they thought of my hockey intelligence. They not only made the playoffs, but marched all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Now, the offseason got off to a bit of a rough start. They lost Philip Donoto, LA, Jesperi Kotkaniemi to a spiteful offer sheet from Carolina, and drafted a very questionable player in Logan Milieu. But the biggest issue? Losing their captain, Shea Weber. Weber and his nearly 23 minutes of ice time per game will miss the entire season, and that's a hole that simply can't be filled. But on the bright side, isn't it pretty strange that after all of that talk about Cole Caulfield last year, that he comes into this season as the favorite to win the Calder Trophy? Yep, he played 10 regular season games and 20 more in the playoffs, but he's officially a rookie this year, and I can't wait to see what he does with a full 82-game season. Okay, the Sens have spent the last few years trying to build a contending team from the ground up. And anytime you've got a team in a rebuild, an impatient fan base will always ask, when will we see results? According to GM Pierre Dorian, quote, the rebuild is done. Now we're stepping into another zone. Well, if that's the case, then this team will be a bottom feeder no more. But even though all the pieces are in place, in order for this team to try to get to the dance, Matt Murray has to have a bounce-back season. 10-13-1, 338 goals against average, 893 save percentage. These are not stats that are going to get your team into the playoffs. And let's not forget the teams that they actually have to catch in order to compete for that playoff spot. We all know that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are going to fill up the score sheet, but the Oilers have relied on their two superstars for years now. And where's it got them? They never said it out loud, but you could almost see it in their faces. They wanted Ken Holland to go out there and get them some help. And he did by signing Zach Hyman. Look, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that Hyman will now come in and challenge McDavid and Draisaitl for the Hart Trophy, but he showed in Toronto that he can not only contribute offensively and do a lot of the dirty work when playing with a superstar, but he could also work his way in and around the lineup. In short, when a line needs a boost, you put Hyman on it. If he can help with some of that secondary scoring, that takes pressure off of the big two and could equal some playoff success. All that being said, he played that same role in Toronto. Didn't really help the Leafs in the playoffs either. Okay, both of these players have 1 year left before entering free agency. Tkachuk is going to be an RFA. Gaudreau will be unrestricted. Let's face it, money is a huge motivator. We've seen it time and time again. Players have huge years when they know there's a possible big payday waiting at the end. Gaudreau is just a couple years removed from that 36-goal, 99-point season. Remember, this team watched the playoffs on television last season, so they need these two to step up, and if they do, they could find themselves back in the playoffs. The Canucks finished last in the North Division last year, but they did pull off one of the biggest moves in the offseason, trading for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And remember, Ekman-Larsson had a no-movement clause in his contract and said he would only waive it for one of two teams, the Bruins and the Canucks, which means yes, he wants to be there. And he wouldn't even have all the pressure of being the number one guy on that blue line. Let's face it, that belongs to Quinn Hughes. But man, what a 1-2 punch. After the Jets swept the Oilers, then got swept themselves by the Habs, well, Blake Wheeler said it was, quote, by far the hardest year of my life. He was 34 and played a chunk of the season with cracked ribs. Now, the ribs may have healed, but there's nothing he can do about his age. The Jets have one of the best top sixes in the league, but let's face it, Wheeler and that big cap hit looked pretty out of place last year. Now, I know plus minus is considered an old guy stat now, but minus 17 is a glaring number and among the worst in the league. These things can't happen if the Winnipeg Jets want to contend for a Stanley Cup. And speaking of the Stanley Cup, will one of these teams be the first Canadian team to do it since 1993? Who knows? But hopefully we'll get a couple of answers to some of these questions.